Hello and welcome again to another episode of Battle Ready. And today, we want to answer the question, is AOS a trash game?
No! Whoever says that is Lark.
All right, well, I'll put a link up to it up there, but there is somebody who's made that. Now, of course, he's being, doing a little bit of a clickbait title, right? I don't think he really thinks the game is trash because he plays it a lot, but Miniac on his channel did a video called Is AOS a Trash Game? And he talked about the problems he has with it, right? And those concerns are of varying legitimacy, I think. But there's already been a couple of React videos. Yeah. But everybody that's reacted so far has come from being a tournament gamer, right? And so they come from a certain perspective. They come with a certain set of knowledge. And sometimes, I think everyone who's done it has been good. No one's been calling anyone names or anything, being rude about it. But if you think about some of the things they said, it sort of boils down to get good, noob, or you just don't understand the game like I do. So I thought we would sort of respond to the complaints because we are very much casual gamers, and that's what Miniac is. He's a casual gamer. He plays at a casual level. And, he's not spending all day tuning up his lists and trying to go 5-0 at tournaments or even just really play any kind of good amount at a tournament. So I thought, well, his complaints really are for a target audience that doesn't match up nicely with people like Heywo, who did an awesome one, or Honest Wargamer Rob, who also did a great one.
I have no idea what he's talking about here.
Yeah, Drake doesn't watch much YouTube of those people. But I do. And so I thought, well, we're more of the target audience, so why don't we see if his complaints are legit? Yeah. He has 5 complaints, which I've handily written down on this sticky note.
Handily.
And thank you, Drake. And what I'm gonna give each one to Drake, and I'm gonna do my best to present his points in a very fair manner. And then I'm gonna let Drake see it. What do you think? Is it a legit complaint? A not a legit complaint?
A not a legit.
And then I'll give my opinion as well. All right, so he goes in order from what he thinks is the most minor issue
to
the most major issue that he has. And we should also say that just because Miniac doesn't like the game doesn't mean the game is bad, right? All games are for some people and not for others. No game is for everybody. We did a video not too long ago, and I'll try to link that up there as well,
somewhere, about
why Warcry worked for us, and we like playing Warcry. But Kill Team wasn't for us, which isn't to say the Kill Team was a bad game. Just it wasn't what we were looking for. It wasn't for us. So AOS might be a game that's just not for Miniac, and that's fine, right? People can have differences of opinion, and that makes the world a more diverse and beautiful place.
Beautiful.
But is AOS a trash game?
No.
Drake says no. All right, let's go to the first complaint. Complaint number 1.
Yes.
List building is too complex.
No.
He says that there's just too much to do between factions, sub-factions, pulling out your points, giving enhancements, battle regiments. No, well, not battle regiment. What do they call them? War Scroll battalions. Yes. Oh, man, that was embarrassing.
Oh, edit it out.
But so between War Scroll battalions, all those things, it's just too complex. It's too much for your casual gamer. And Drake, what are your thoughts about list building?
I see it the other way around.
Okay, tell us about it.
I don't think there's enough sub-factions to choose from.
All right.
I personally think that the points, they make sense. Mm-hmm. They don't, they're meant to show the power level of a unit, and I think they do that greatly. That's not a word.
Yeah, it's a fine word. Yeah, I agree. I didn't get this one in the video. I think list building is pretty straightforward. Yeah. Now, granted, I played a lot of Magic the Gathering back in the day, and now I attended some small tournaments where I did I performed with excessive mediocrity.
How well did you do?
Like 2-2. I mean,
I don't know what that means.
Like I would win a couple and lose a couple.
Okay. So
I'm not any kind of great tournament. No one should be coming to me for Magic advice. But I liked building decks, and you'd have about high 30s, maybe 40 cards of non-lands to mess with. And it was always, when I would build decks, I would have my main strategy that took up about 30, 35 cards. And then those last few cards, I'd be looking at it and thinking, okay, well, what if I played a aggro deck? Well, maybe I should bring this in. What if I played a counter deck? What if I'm going over your head? So list building is something that felt really familiar to me. Yeah, I don't think there's anything weird. Now, 3.0 did add on War Scroll battalions.
Those were already there, just not universal.
So there were, in 2.0, there were War Scroll battalions that costed points, but they were unique to each army. Now there's sort of these universal ones like the Battle Regiment or Warlord that gives you an extra artifact and stuff like that. Do you think that increases complexity?
No. It just might affect the way you build your list a tiny bit to affect that in your strategy.
Well, I think it's a couple of more knobs and levers, right? It gives you more options in the list building phase.
Never.
Very nice. In the list building phase, yeah, frankly, I was a little bit surprised with that complaint. Coming from a casual standpoint, I don't think we have any issues, right? You get one leader, you get 3 battle line, you fill the rest out with 2,000 points. It's not super hard. Now, if you want to, fight in your particular meta and you're really looking to squeeze out the points because you think you're going to face one kind of list or another, and so the last 200 points really matters, that's sort of a different thing. But if you're at a casual player, I don't really agree. All right, point number 2, rules bloat. All right, his complaint is there are too many places to have rules. There's rules in the core rules. There's rules for army construction in the General's Handbook. There's rules in your battle tome. There can be rules in a White Dwarf. What's your thoughts on that?
I see it valid, but I don't think it can be considered a rule bloat. I don't think there's that many rules that it's impossible for new people to learn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You just have to layer it on.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a valid point to this. I think it's silly that they put rules in the White Dwarf magazine. In 2023, there is no reason I should have to buy an issue of a subscription magazine to get the rules. Now, it would be one thing if the magazine, because sometimes they'll come out with like a battle plan for your army, or this is a cool, historical scenario or whatever. And those are cool, but to have real rules that are intended to be used in all games locked away behind a magazine, that's sort of not cool. Games Workshop, don't do that. That's not cool.
Well, they want to do that for the battle tomes.
The Tome Celestial. It's worse in 40K. They do it a lot worse in 40K. Or Kill Team has a lot of kill teams that show up in White Dwarf. So, yeah, it's not as bad in AOS as it is in other systems, but still, don't do that. Yeah, I tend to agree. I think the rules are in a little bit, there's too many places. I feel like the core rules, of course, right, and a battle tome should basically be all you need.
And the General's Handbook is for like the special.
Yeah, and then if you want to layer on top of that General's Handbook because you want to play those kinds of games or whatever, then cool, right? Then that should really be seen as an optional add-on. And then really, if you just want to play the game, you only need 2 things. And I think given the number of factions, that's fair. You wouldn't want one super book that's this big that has the core rules plus rules for every faction. Because then you'd be buying rules for like 15 factions, 20 factions you don't play, right? So I agree that it can sometimes be an issue, but I'm a little bit surprised it's on the complaint of what makes AOS a trash game. Because while inconvenient, and they could do stuff like putting stuff in the app, right? Putting the rules in the app more. Maybe if you buy a battle tome, it should be constantly updated so you get those White Dwarf ones for free or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it has any bearing on the play of the game. It can be a little inconvenient. Item 3.
Okay.
All right. Item 3, internal balance. Do you know what internal balance is?
No clue.
All right. So external balance is like the win rate. Is Skaven a balanced army if it's beating everybody else? No. Is Skaven a balanced army if it's losing to everybody else? No.
Okay.
Is Skaven a balanced army if it's winning about half the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more.
All the ones should be winning about half the time because every game has 2 players, one of them loses, right? So if everybody's winning about
Unless
half
one
the time,
ties.
that's true. If you're winning about half the time, that's balance. That's external balance because we're comparing Seraphon versus Daughters and Skaven versus Ogres or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Internal balance is about what's in the book. And there's 2 things that he touches on. One, he says sometimes the unique enhancements, he calls out artifacts specifically. He says a lot of times there's like, there's 6 options or whatever there are. Sometimes there's a lot more options. And there'll be, 1 good one or 2 good ones and then a bunch of junk. Why you put in a bunch of junk? That's not good balance. If everyone keeps taking the 1 or 2 that are good, it's not balanced among the artifacts, right? There's a couple good ones and some junk. And he says units are the same way. Sometimes you'll have a book where, these units are clearly better than these units. So you always take these and these other units never see play. Thoughts?
I think all that stuff is really to just match your playstyle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially Stormcast. It has a bazillion units.
Yeah, Stormcast is the worst, I think, because it just has way too many War Scrolls.
Mm-hmm. But it does fit everyone's playstyle. Sort of, maybe.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is true, especially when it comes to artifacts. I do feel like it's not that 1 or 2 are good and the rest are junk. I feel like 1 or 2 are good. Well, that's a little bit true. But I feel like 1 or 2 are good in sort of the competitive sense where you want to really, attack or they fit into your strategy or whatever. And then the others are often sometimes more of a fun list. Another great example of that is Soulblight Gravelords, where they've got the one sub-faction that makes zombie dragons and stuff, battle line. So you can have all zombie dragons and terrorgeists and stuff. And I think that's really cool, but it's probably not super strong because you come to the battle with,
6,
like
7,
60 wounds, right? So it's like, is it really that good?
But they're so strong.
They are so strong. So I feel like you'll have 1 or 2 that are meant for competitive play, and then several others that are meant for
fun.
Those kinds of fun things. Now, they might not get picked a lot, but that's what happens. What about when it comes to units?
I feel like the same thing. They just match your playstyle. They're just there to match your playstyle.
When it comes to units, I feel a little bit differently about it because I feel like there are some units that are just not good. I've tried to play them many times, but it's the Daughters of Cain, Doomfire Warlocks. They're just not good.
Their spell is good.
Maybe, if it ever casts.
He's never casted it, I don't think.
They're just not good. And no matter what I try to do to give them protections and shields and all kinds of stuff, just not good.
No, that's because I target them.
Yeah, well, that too. But look how easy it is to target them, right? That's a lot of points. So I feel like internal balance is an issue.
I feel like with the Doomfire Warlocks, you run them out into the field way too much. They need to be a little bit farther
That's because their spell only has like 12-inch range.
Well,
so they got to get out there if I want to use their spell.
Well, have them behind a screen of like witch elves or something.
Anyway, the internal balance, I think it is an issue. I think you will find tomes where there's just some units that aren't that good. But first of all, battle tomes change every so often, so those units might be great next time. Second of all, I don't think there's any unit that's unplayable, where it's just completely detrimental to bring it. And so you can always bring what you want. I think if you're talking about internal balance in tournaments, where tournament play is what people are looking for, and so they're looking for the most efficient unit, the one that does the most for the smallest amount of points. Yeah, I think that's always going to skew. And so what you see at tournaments might not be reflective of what's getting played on people's tables. What if artifacts costed points? So you had maybe a couple of good ones, but it took 30 points to bring them. Or you had a couple of not okay ones, but they were 10 points or maybe free or whatever. So you could take the free one, or if you wanted the good one, you'd have to pay 30 points.
That it doesn't exist, but if it did, and I don't think it would. I don't think it would ever come.
Well, it might. They had that in fantasy battles.
They're better than fantasy battles now.
All right. Well, what if they came out with that system? What would you think?
I would think that's a little unfair.
Why?
Because artifacts are taken with your hero, so they shouldn't count as a buff tier, but they shouldn't count towards your hero's points.
My feeling about it is I just don't. In theory, where everything was perfectly balanced, I think that would be pretty cool.
But theory doesn't work.
But I just don't trust that, there's already some difficulty in pointing units appropriately, yes. Right? Not every unit is pointed appropriately in this game.
Not Scribe Grab.
And I feel like if it's hard to do that with units, it's going to be even harder to do that with artifacts where you have to have 6 per tome. Well, let's just say it's 6 per tome. And you have to realize, this artifact on Hero 1 might be worth basically nothing. But if you put that same artifact on this other hero, because of his war scroll, they synergize together real good, and now it's like a super mega artifact. So trying to balance everything, I feel like it's going to cause more problems. I like all the artifacts being free,
yep.
And then you keep them all at roughly the same power level, and it works out. I think that's good. I'm pretty happy with the way that it is. I wouldn't want to see them point out the artifacts or any of the other enhancements. I think keeping it as it is good. So internal balance, I think it is an issue that people need to keep an eye on, but I think it's pretty overblown. And frankly, let's say you play a tome where you play an army where the balance is really out of whack. Well, you're not bringing everything, right? You're bringing the stuff that you want to bring. You're bringing the models that you like, or should be bringing the models that you like. So who cares if nobody's bringing some other models you don't like, right? You just play the list you like. I don't know. So internal balance, I think, isn't wrong. It's just, I would have put that at maybe the 0.1 is the most minuscule issue. Okay. All right, number 4.
Ooh.
All right. Flat gameplay.
What?
So what he means is that every game of Age of Sigmar is objective-based. It's all objectives, all the time. Nothing changes. And when they introduce battle tactics, they introduce them, but all the battle tactics are things like kill that unit with your general or take an objective from an opponent. So it's all stuff you want to do anyway. So they don't add like another layer.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
That makes sense, but there are like paths to glory. There are alternatives where it's not objective focused.
So this, I think, spoiler alert, I think is his most valid argument.
Yes.
Now, it's not true that everything's objective. I mean, there are objectives, and all the general's handbooks, all objectives, right? But the rules they layer on top of each one make a big difference. Sometimes you're turning objectives on. Sometimes you're turning them off. Sometimes they explode out in different directions. Sometimes they do all kinds of different stuff. So it's not as though every game you're setting up and you know where the objectives are and you're moving forward. So I don't think that it's flat at all. And one thing I think we could use is right now in narrative play, in Path to Glory, you get battle plans where it's not objective based, right? It's like conquer this area or kill the opponents or stop this ritual or defend this tower. And those are super fun. I really like them. I would love to see a series of battle plans, whether it came out as part of its own, sergeant's handbook, right? Or something else, that were all non-objective battle plans where you just got to play those kinds of narrative games.
In a general's handbook, sort of.
Yeah, that's why I call it a sergeant's handbook, because it's the narrative one. Yeah. So yeah, I would definitely go for that for sure. I could see some variety. I think that the objective play makes things more even, and that's what you want in like a tournament thing. So it makes sense. But I don't think it's flat, and I think there are ways to spice things up. What about the battle tactics? What do you think of battle tactics?
I feel like the battle tactics are a little questionable on how they affect the game.
All right, how so?
He said, they seem like things you want to do. Anyway.
Yep.
But the good thing is they give you points for it.
Yep. I think I like the idea of battle tactics sort of in theory, but I do think every battle tactic, maybe they're worth too many points. Maybe they should only be worth one. And I do think that they should ask you to do things you wouldn't normally do.
Yeah. Like running it off the table for...
That might be too powerful, too terrible. I don't think anyone's going to pick that. But like desecrate their lands isn't bad because you're trying to take over something that's not an objective, right? Or having 3 units run. That's
in the old one.
In the old one. That would have been better if it wasn't takeable the first turn.
Yeah.
So like in the middle of the game somewhere, having 3 units run, you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to run 3 units right now. I'd rather charge or whatever.
Yeah. What I would like to see is battle tactics, 1, be a little bit more risky. And 2, see them vary in points. Like the least risky one, take an objective, is only worth like 1 point. Like kill a general, kill like their most high valued points unit with your general. And like, so it's something risky. That
would be really interesting. I'd have to think more about that, but that would be sort of cool because then if you're falling behind, you could try to take the riskier ones to catch up. Or you could even make a battle like your army going in is, I'm going to do the things that give me the bonus battle tactic points, and I'm going to care less about objectives or whatever else.
Yeah,
that's sort of cool. I
would like to.
I'd have to think about that a little bit more before I decide, but I don't think that's a terrible idea.
What's his worst?
His worst.
I'm calling double turn.
You're exactly right.
What?
So his worst is, he calls it needless risk. He says there's just too many dice. Too many dice. You roll for everything. Too much dice. And he really hates the double turn. He says it just decides games. It just decides too many games. So what do you have to say about that?
I feel like it can be decisive, but it's not like hammer, that's the game, as soon as you get the double. I feel like you're in a bad spot, but you yourself could get the double and flip things around. So I think the double turn should stay where it is, because I don't know how else they're going to fix it.
I think the double turn is great.
Yeah.
Because if it was just turn, 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 turn.
The person who got the first turn will probably win.
Maybe, but it would be very static, right? Because you could march forward in ways knowing that, well, I'm not going to get doubled.
Yeah.
So I know I'm at least going to get 1 turn after the next one. Whereas with the double turn, it causes you to be a little more cautious.
And if you have to choose whether they're getting the double turn or not, sometimes.
Oh, yeah. And there are incentives to not take the double turn. But I also think, if you get 2 turns in a row, first of all, it's fun. It's fun when it comes down to that roll and you're just hoping, like, please give me a double turn. Or please don't let him have a double turn. It's pretty fun. But also, there have been lots of times when you've gotten a double. And lots of times when I've gotten a double. And
it's not game determinative.
It's not game determinative.
Often it goes the other way.
Yes, there have been lots of games when the person who didn't get the double ends up winning. So it's not, now it's a big advantage for sure. I don't want to minimize it. Yeah. It is a big deal. But
that is his victory dance almost every time he gets it.
That's true. If I get it at the right time. But it is not determinative, or it isn't always determinative. In fact, it adds a lot of drama. It adds a lot of interest to the game that just wouldn't be there if it was always I go, you go, turn taking. What about rolling too many dice?
No.
No, you don't think so?
Mm-mm.
The one, I agree. I think that's Warhammer. It's a dice game. If you don't like to roll bad, this is not the game for you, right? If you think that there should be less dice rolling, then there's lots of games with less dice rolling, right? Age of Sigmar isn't that game. And that's 100% fine, right? If maybe it's not the game for you, no game is for everybody. But you have to learn to enjoy the dice, because sometimes you'll roll that 6 and it's going to be amazing. And sometimes you're going to roll the 1 and you're going to cry, right? That's just what happens. So you have to accept the highs with the lows, accept the lows with the highs. The only area where I think Age of Sigmar does a little bit too much rolling is with spells.
Really?
I really hate it when you roll a spell and then the spell says, pick a unit on a 2-up. I just rolled for the spell. I got the casting value. Then I had to survive your unbind attempt. And so finally, after all that rolling, I'm fine. And then I only get it on a 2-up or a 3-up? Forget that noise. What am I even rolling the spell? Why do I roll a spell for the privilege of rolling for the ability? That's ridiculous. No, bad. X. Wrong. That one is wrong.
You get it, and then on a 2-up, you see if it happens again.
That would be okay, actually. Like the one the ogres have, where they do D3 and then you roll to see if they do D3 more.
Or
and
if
then you
they're
roll.
satisfied.
Yeah, that I like. That is sort of cool. It should do an effect, and then maybe you roll to do more. That is totally cool.
What about?
But when I roll and I get the cast, and I'm like, yes, I gave Zeech his fate point, but at least I get to do my thing. And then I roll and I don't get to do my thing.
Oh, you mean like Scragrot's meteors? You mean like Scragrot's meteors?
Scragrot's meteors. No, because you roll it and then you get whatever the casting value is, you get to roll that many dice.
Yes, but that means.
But I don't like the ones where it's like you get to roll and on a 3-up you do the effect, but on a 1 or 2, haha, you're dumb for casting that spell. It didn't do anything.
Which ones are those?
There's several. I mean, I don't pick them ever because they make me mad.
I don't know which ones they are.
I know for a fact. Well, maybe by the time this comes out, this isn't true. But at least currently, the current Slaanesh tome has ones like that. And I know there are other tomes that do too. So they definitely exist.
The 2.0 Slaanesh.
So overall, what are his points? List building's too complex? No, we say no to that. Rules in too many places? I think when we get to White Dwarfs, yes.
I'd go this.
But overall, I say no. I think if you have the core rules, which are free online, and you have your battle tome, you've got sufficient enough to play this game. I also think it merits, when he says, actually, the third one is internal balance. I think that can be an issue, but I think it's so minimal. Very minimal. Say went from here to here.
Yep.
One thing I will say about
this. That's my
this,
answer for number 3.
and one thing actually I'll ask you about, is I know that he plays games at lower points values, like 1,000, 1,250, like that. Now, I feel like the balance of the game is really sort of at the 2,000 point level, right? Can you play the game with less or more?
Yes.
Of course. But it's really at the 2,000 points. So when you're at a lower value, you have to recognize that the game's not meant to be balanced there. That said, would I recommend not playing 1,000 point games? No. Do we play 1,000 point games?
Oh, yeah.
Are they fun?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they're quicker.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I think with the 1,000 point games, you just have to recognize that it's much more of sort of a pretzels game where you push your toys, you roll some dice.
Pretzels.
Thank you. You push your toys, you roll some dice, you have some fun, you laugh about who died, and then you move on.
Pretzel.
Good pretzel, Drake.
Yeah.
All right. Flat gameplay. Yeah.
Ow, my thumb.
Yeah, careful there. I don't see this one at all. Just because they all have objectives doesn't mean they're all the same. In fact, every battle plan is different.
Yeah.
We've done videos about which battle plans were good and which were not as good because they're so different, right? I just don't see this one.
Yeah.
He didn't like the implementation of battle tactics. I think that's fair.
There.
I think
that's what he gets for that one.
Another like 45-degree angle. I think that's fair. I think battle tactics could be better, but I don't think they're bad. I hardly ever play with grand strategies because I don't like grand strategies that much.
I like choosing grand strategies just in case.
Just in case.
Just in case.
So that would be different. But when it comes to battle tactics, I like them well enough. We use them all the time.
Yeah.
And then the last one is too many dice.
It's double. Triple.
Yeah. That might just be a personal opinion thing. That might be him saying, Miniac, don't like too many dice.
I'm Miniac.
In which case, cool, right? If you don't like that, if that's not the kind of game for you, let 1,000 flowers bloom. We can all.
I don't know what that phrase means, but okay.
It means we can all like the things we like. Okay. Right?
Flowers.
But yeah, you have to like dice to be in the game. And then what about hating on the double turn? Yeah.
I give him a quadruple.
It's so interesting. When we first started playing, I wasn't a huge fan of the priority roll. I wasn't a huge fan. But we played with it because that's what the because that's what the rules were. So we played with it. And
now,
over time, I like it. I like it. Yes, sometimes it has a
Decisive.
huge impact on the game. Sometimes even decisive, but not always. And it fills the game with drama. It makes you play differently because you have to say, "Oh, if I'm going first this turn, I've got to set up my guys in such a way that if I get doubled, I can hopefully survive it." So, and sometimes I've gotten the double and passed it off to Drake and said, "Nope, I don't want to take my double yet. I'm hoping for my double next turn."
And if he doesn't get it, he's sad.
Then I'm sad. I'm like, "Aw." So I just don't think that's a bad element. I think it's actually a net positive for the game.
Net positive.
Again, speaking as somebody who's a casual player.
Net positive.
Very nice. From the casual perspective, it is a net positive.
Yes.
So overall, is AOS a trash game?
No.
No, it's not a trash game. I think there is 1.5 issues in here that I think are worthy of discussion.
Worthy.
I don't think they're at huge detriments to the game, but I think they're worthy of discussion. And then I see a lot of things in here that are personal opinion, and then a couple things that are wrong. I just flat out disagree. And that's okay, right? We can have disagreements. People can like different things.
Yeah.
It's all good. Any final thoughts?
I think we've covered everything.
Okay. All right. Well, let us know what you think. I'm sure, like I said, I linked it earlier. If you have watched the Miniac's video, definitely let you know if we missed any points or if there's anything that thank you, that we should have covered but didn't in the comments, and we'll be happy to read all of those. But otherwise, this has been another episode of Battle Ready. And thanks so much for watching.